Welcome to the Story Fulfilled podcast, where we deep dive into how each character and story in the Bible come together to fulfill the story of God.
I'm Fletcher.
I'm Jay.
And I'm Abby.
And today's story is about Aaron.
And Hur.
It is indeed. And because it's about Aaron
and Hur,
I was reminded as I was thinking about the question that Aaron becomes the voice of Moses. And so I was thinking about that and thinking about when I was younger, and I'm a little bit older than you guys, I understand this, but there was like this trend in cinematic storytelling where there would be like a story unfolding and there'd be like a voiceover actor. So it's like the older voice of the character who's shown. So some examples of this would be like The Wonder Years or A Christmas Story. And so voiceover actors.
who would you have play your older self?
Yeah, who would be, if you had to choose somebody to be your voiceover actor, who would you choose?
Okay. I'm going to go first because I actually have an answer. And Fletcher changed the question there. He said older self. And so one of my answers is definitely not older self.
I don't have an older self.
Okay, that's good.
I'm going to
Okay.
slash that then. And just who would
Just
you
say
want
who
as
would
your
your
voiceover
voiceover-
for your
okay.
movie?
Okay, so my initial thought was Dora the Explorer.
Wait. Dora is not okay. I'm thinking actors, but you're like okay.
I'm taking it because she's always so positive,
Can
and
you
whenever
see Abby?
whenever there's a
She's
problem,
over there.
yeah, whenever there's a
Wow.
problem, she'll be like, "Wow, there's a new opportunity. Can you see the opportunity?" And I think that would be really encouraging to me. And I really love the Dora the Explorer live action movie.
Did they have a voiceover in that?
No, she just kind of
I
would
haven't seen it.
randomly look at the camera, and she would go like, "Can you say
That's
backpack?"
funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a great movie. So either her
Dora.
or if I'm being a little more serious and want like an actual person, then I would pick Julie Andrews because you can't be upset when you listen to Julie Andrews talk or sing.
Okay.
All right.
I'm
Fair
down
enough.
with that. You got one?
Not yet.
Oh.
Go for it.
Okay. So for some reason the voice that came to mind for me was Paul Giamatti. So
What is that?
So that's the thing. He's been in so many movies, like so many movies, and actually he fits into our theme because he's often like a support to the supporting role. But he gets very excited very quickly, and for some reason when I'm thinking about my life, I'm like it's Paul Giamatti. He's the guy like his character will be like, "I'm really freaking out right now. Like, you got me freaking out," and stuff like that. And so, yeah.
Paul Giamatti.
For some
I
reason.
feel like that would
Are
be
you looking him up?
stressful.
I'll look him up.
I'm looking him up right now.
So I'm trying to think of his main roles that he's had. He was
Yeah,
in.
there's-
He was
Kinda
in
looks like
Apollo 11. He looks like me.
Look at that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the beard and the glasses. He was in a
right.
Spider-Man. He's a villain in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
He was in Jungle Cruise. more
Yeah, he's in Jungle
recently.
Cruise.
I'm trying to recognize him, and I just don't.
Yeah. So maybe I don't
Alright.
want him to be always saying I'm freaking out right now because
That would be so stressful.
it'd be a little bit stressful. But for some reason I'm like, yeah, Paul Giamatti. I want
Nice.
Okay.
him to voice over my life.
That's
Okay.
that's a great answer.
There you go. Is it though? Is it really?
I can't even
Okay,
think of
Fletcher.
like voiceover people. The classic is Morgan Freeman.
I was
I'm not
gonna say
choose
I was
I was
Morgan
gonna actually
Freeman, though.
I was
That's-
gonna
that's
create
really
parameters
silly.
to the question and
Yeah.
say he's off the table.
Yeah, obviously. Voiceover for my
James
life.
Earl Jones off the table too.
Darth Vader. Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman.
We're gonna go with Bradley Cooper.
Okay.
He's one of my favorite actors. But
Yeah.
he's cool. He's quick-witted. He's
Okay.
ready to go. He's talking quickly.
A little more stable
Sure.
than Paul Giamatti.
Maybe, yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, that's I
Alright.
guess so. Or Jesse, have you heard Jesse Eisenberg? He's like
Oh yeah.
Now You See
Now
Me,
You
and he
See
plays
Me.
Lex Luthor.
Okay.
He's quick, he's witty,
Right.
things going
He's a
on.
little
Unlike
nerdy,
me.
little-
Yeah.
There you
Yeah, so that's who I'm gonna go with.
go. Okay. Well, we would like to hear who would you want to voice over your life if you got to pick somebody.
Yeah.
So let us know. Either email us at story@bfmc.org or send us a message on our Instagram account. Or that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it.
Let us know.
Let us know.
So, as always, we encourage you to read the stories for yourselves to get the whole picture of what's going on. And today's story takes place in the book of Exodus. So, it's basically the same time period as last time. We're talking about Aaron, who was Moses' brother. And Moses was just talking to the burning bush. He's been called back to Egypt to deliver the people. And that's right where our stories pick up. So, what's going on, Jay?
So again, same as last episode. So as far as the history about what's going on, it's happening the same time, 1400 BC. Egypt is in its new kingdom period. The Amorites and Canaanites are living in the Palestine area. And as we said, city-states are ruling all through Mesopotamia. We've got Babylon, Nineveh, and the like. So that's where there's nothing new to report.
It's the exact same within minutes of the same story as last year.
Geography's changed a little bit.
Yeah, geography because the
different focus.
Yes, so the story one of the stories we're talking about is in Rephidim. So this is during the battle with the Amalekites. And we talked a little bit about this in season 1, episode 11, about the Edomites, about where the exact location of Rephidim may be. But basically, it could be in northwest Saudi Arabia or in the southern part of the Sinai Peninsula. While the time that the Hebrews were slaves, they lived in the land of Goshen on the eastern side of the Nile Delta in the northeast of modern-day Egypt. So, a little different.
And they were slaves.
They
were slaves. Aaron, who we are talking about, he does a lot throughout Exodus, actually, and he's kind of a major character. But he's actually Moses' helper to start out. He's his brother. He's his older brother by about 3 years. And he was raised by his Hebrew parents, along with Miriam, who's Moses' sister, instead of, we know Moses was raised by the Egyptians.
Right.
So Aaron stayed in Egypt and was in slavery there.
Right. So just a note, like he was born before all of the Hebrew babies had to be hidden or were ordered to be executed. Killed, So we find ourselves in story 1. And so Moses is in the wilderness and he comes across this bush which catches his attention because the bush is on fire. The interesting thing about this is that the bush is not consumed while it's on fire. And this is what catches Moses's attention. So just a quick aside about that before we step in, because the bush then becomes an important part of the story because it's not contributing a single thing to the fire that's taking place, which is kind of incredible if you think about it. Like if there's a wooden stool in front of me right now, if I were to light that on fire, it would be consumed because the wood would actually feed the fire. The wood is actually an essential part of the fire. When the bush is on fire, the bush itself is not an essential part of the fire. It's God who is the fire. And so the bush is simply available. And God uses the bush because it's available. And so the phrase that I've heard out of that and I've kind of adopted is any old bush will do. Like when God is looking,
the helper.
The bush is the helper,
That's
right?
Great.
When God is looking for people to use, he's simply looking for availability. He's not looking for skill, technique, popularity, any of these things, which we'll see that Moses kind of throws some of those things at God and says, hey, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not. And God's like, hey, that's not what I'm looking for. Remember the bush? All I'm looking for is availability. So I love the bush actually in this story and even consider the bush to be like the main character.
We should have titled the episode The Bush.
The bush
instead.
But
more important,
there's more written about Moses, about Aaron and Hur later on. So bush gets Moses' attention, and it's because God is in it, and God is calling Moses to go and to liberate his people from Egypt. And they have this interaction, and God actually gives him signs to show to the people that he was sent by God. And so God shows him that by having him throw down his staff and turning it into a snake, and then turning it back into a staff and putting his hand into his cloak, and then it comes out leprous, and he puts it back and it's healed. And so for me, that's like, okay, that's enough. God, thank you. Cool. I see it. I'm on my way. And Moses is like, but I'm slow in speech. I need someone to speak for me, which is also ironic because he was raised in the Pharaoh's household. He was probably extremely well educated and very confident to be able to speak. And so God says, fine, I will put the words in your mouth. And Moses is like, no, I don't know. I'm still not really sure, God. And
I like your Moses voice.
Yeah,
I,
that's right.
Sounds like
I
Eeyore.
guess. Yeah. No, thank you.
ho hum. And God's like, fine. You have a brother named Aaron, and he is good at speaking. He will be your voice. He will be your mouthpiece. And so God speaks to Aaron and tells him that his brother is returning and to go and meet him. And they meet up, and Moses tells him all that God has said. What's not recorded is that Aaron's probably like, yeah, I know. God told me that you're an idiot and you're not willing to do the things that he asked you to do. And so I got to be your mouthpiece now. So he doesn't actually say that. So they go to the Hebrew leaders, and Aaron speaks to them, and he performs the signs that God gave to them, and the people believe, which is really cool. Again, just another aside to step back. In that interaction is when Moses says to God, when the people ask me, who sent me? Who shall I tell them sent me? And that's where God says, I am, which is the name that we have taken for God being Yahweh. And maybe that's something that we'll talk about later on
I'm sure we will.
stuff. But that's when that happens. And so then Aaron speaks on behalf of Moses to the Pharaoh and performs the signs and the plagues, actually, that God told Moses to inflict on the Egyptians. And so, so the kind of in that story, Moses fights God about making him speak. He's scared that he can't do it, and God gives him a helper in Aaron to help him out and
then Aaron ends up doing most of the work. Like, he's the one who's telling, like, Moses is kind of getting the words from God, going, okay, Aaron, here, this is what you got to say.
Yeah.
And Aaron's the one who carries the staff when they're doing the miracles. He's the one that throws the stick on the ground and turns it to a snake.
Yeah.
And then Aaron's also the one who starts the plagues. He, raises his staff and turns the Nile into blood. He's the one that brings the frogs. He's the one that starts all these plagues.
Right.
He's the one doing the work.
Yeah.
So he's got like the
as a helper.
As a helper. Yeah. Moses is just, mooching off him maybe a little bit. No. So that's the end of story 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shows, Aaron is Moses's right-hand man. He's his secondary helper. So this is another story when Aaron really is going to be the helper.
But not just Aaron. Also,
Avi's favorite
Hur.
character for some reason, Hur.
Fletcher just keeps forgetting about him, and you just can't. You can't. He's to be included. So this is Hur, H-U-R, like Ben-Hur. So, but not Ben-Hur.
Different guy.
Is Ben-Hur even real? Anyways.
No.
Okay.
Well.
Okay.
No.
All right. So, story number 2. So the Israelites have now left Egypt, and they crossed the Red Sea, and they're eating bread from heaven, which is called manna. They're drinking water from a rock, which the staff provided for them. And while they're in Rephidim,
I think God provided the water for the rock, the staff.
Yes, you're right. God did, but God fueled the staff to do that.
Right.
So we got it. While they're in Rephidim, the Amalekites just randomly attack Israel. This happens to them a lot, eh? Like they
just get attacked.
They
Yeah.
just get attacked. So they get attacked, honestly. And Moses goes up onto this mountain with Aaron and Hur. And God is like, okay, here's the deal. If you can keep your hands up in the air, then you will win. As long as your hands are up in the air, you're going to win. But if they start to go down, then you're going to lose, and your people are going to lose. And obviously, this is like hours. This is a battle. This is not like it's 5 minutes.
It goes all day.
Yeah. And so, obviously, you can't keep your arms up. Side note, when I was in grade 3, my teacher, after recess, she would have us do like these calming exercises so that we could get like refocused or whatever. And one day she's like, okay, everyone hold their arms out. And she's like, we're going to do this for 5 minutes. And she made all of us hold our arms out for 5 minutes. And it was so hard.
And you didn't get a helper to help you out?
No, we all had to do it by ourselves.
That's
and it was so hard. So I cannot imagine what it would have been like if you had to do this for hours for
That's
a
like
full day.
my kids love to watch Mr. Beast videos, and he always has these contests where it's like the last person to take their hand off a car will win it.
Car, yeah.
And I'm watching and I'm like, come on, that's so, like, how can you just don't take your hand off?
Yeah,
And you just watch people drop one by one. And yeah, it's harder than it seems.
Yeah.
Keeping your arms out for 5 minutes.
Holding a staff.
Holding a
The whole
staff.
We
thing.
should have a contest. See which one of us can hold our arms out the longest.
Yeah.
That's going to be our next Instagram
Oh
live.
boy.
Fantastic.
All right.
6 hours of us holding our arms out.
I'm bringing helpers.
You have some. All right. So, yes, they're holding up Moses' arms. And they put some stones underneath to help him. And they just keep doing it until sundown. And then the Israelites win. The Amalekites who randomly attacked them, probably guerrilla warfare style, just not knowing, and they lost. They had every advantage except
Yeah,
they
they
didn't have God.
they just run from slavery out of Egypt,
Right.
And they still lost the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rough
And
for them.
It's all
I
because
want to
of
know
elders.
why God made Moses keep his arms up. Like, what the heck is going
Maybe
on
it's
there?
like a praise you, Jesus. You know, people put their
Well, I
arms
think
up
there
in
is
the air.
there's significance to that. Like it's a pointing to God, and he said this is the way that the battle will be won. Like the battle was not actually won by the skill on
that
the
was-
field. The battle was won by listening to what God had said. And I think that's actually a really good principle for us to take in life is success depends on listening to what God says. And sometimes what God says doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, hey, lift your hands up for however many hours, or, give, even though you are struggling financially, I want you to give to this ministry or this situation, and just watch how I'm going to bless you. So many ways of God just don't make sense to us. But that's where success is found, is in following what he says.
Here's a story for you. So my dad was a pastor before he got his current job, and he said that he had this guy one time who told him that one time he was sitting in church and just minding his own business, and all of a sudden he felt like God was saying, "Go do push-ups in the aisle." And he's like, "Why would I do that? Like, this is the middle of service. Like, I'm not going to go do push-ups." But he just kept feeling like God was telling him, go do push-ups in the aisle. So eventually he's like, okay. And goes and does a couple push-ups in the aisle, then goes back to his seat and go back to the service, listening again. And then again, he hears it again. Okay, go do push-ups in the aisle. And he's like, are you serious? Like, I already did. Like, this is weird. People are looking at me. But he did it. He went back and he did push-ups in the aisle. And then he goes back to his seat and he's just sitting there. He's like, this is ridiculous. People are going to be like, what the heck? You're being disrespectful. And at the end of the service, this guy comes up to him and he's like, I just want to say thank you. And he's like, why? He's like, because during service, like, I came today and I really didn't know where I was at with God and if he was real or not. And so I prayed that for a sign. And he's like, I prayed that God would have somebody do push-ups in the aisle. And so when I saw you do them, he's like, no, that's no way. It's just a coincidence. He's like, so I asked again and then you did it again. And he's like, I really needed that. And that was just God.
Nuts.
Wow.
I know. So it may feel weird. But
Yeah.
you never know, right? You never know why you're being asked to do something.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, I'm going to take us back to after that crazy story. I think it also has something to do with letting people help you. Because that
Right.
was probably a big thing, is like, oh, Moses can do it on his own. He couldn't.
Right.
He couldn't get it done on his own. He needed help.
That's
and
it.
Letting people help you is not always the easiest thing, but it's probably the wise decision to do.
Yep.
So, story number 3. Luckily, they won that battle, and they've made it. And they've now built kind of more of a permanent residence, but they're still in the wilderness. They're not in the promised land yet. And God is talking through Moses, and he's given him the law, and he's given him, all these rituals and laws and sacrifice, everything that they have to do. And you can read those in kind of the books of Exodus and Leviticus. And God ends up choosing Aaron to be the high priest over all of Israel. And he gets this cool outfit. It's a high priest robes, and there's lots of symbolism with that if you want to read into it. It's also in Exodus and Leviticus. Really cool. But anyway, Aaron's main role as the high priest is to enter into God's presence and to perform a sacrifice on what's called the Day of Atonement, which is Yom Kippur in Hebrew. And he's the only one that can do this in all of Israel. He's the only one who's allowed to enter. So this is kind of an exclusive thing. And so one time this guy named Korah is like, okay, who are you that you're so holy that, God has chosen you to do this? Like,
Right.
I think anybody can do this. I think I'm holy enough. I think other people are holy enough to do it. Well, Aaron disagreed. Moses disagreed. And God shut this revolt down pretty quickly. He actually ends up opening a hole in the ground, and the people go in or fall in and they die.
Yeah.
So that was
Swallowed by the earth.
they were swallowed by the earth.
Such a great story.
It's kind of wild. It's like out of nowhere they're like, no, we're holy enough, and then you get swallowed. Clearly you're wrong.
Right?
This one would make a good TV show episode.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
All of a sudden the ground opens and you're gone.
I mean, they kind of did that in Return of the Jedi, but it's a little bit different, I guess, with that, like the ground creature when.
Sarlacc pit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And then Korah is Boba Fett flying in there.
Maybe a little different. Okay.
So the people are all kind of riled up that this happened. This is nuts, and they want to perform a test to make sure Aaron and the Levites, which is what tribe Moses and Aaron were from.
I'm sorry,
are
wait, that wasn't a good enough sign? That
I know, a hole in the ground wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Not just a hole in the ground, the earth opening up and literally
swallowing people.
swallowing
Yeah.
people.
So, they need more proof, of course. So they take sticks, wooden sticks. They're like dead branches, staffs, and they put them inside the tent of meeting, the tabernacle, overnight. And then whoever stick like flowers and becomes alive again is the stick of the person who is God's chosen priests. So, of course, all the tribes put a stick in. They let it go overnight, and they come back, and this dead piece of wood that was Aaron's stick has these flowers and bloomed and has like almonds coming out of it.
Yeah.
So it was like apparently it was an almond stick. They didn't tell us that beforehand, but it has almonds coming out
It
of
would have
it.
smelled nice.
And his was the only stick. So they've been proved wrong twice. They got swallowed up. The stick is bloomed, and this is like definitive proof that Aaron is actually the right man for the job. And what's funny, if you're reading like Aaron's story, he messes up big time when Moses is up on the mountain.
Right.
So he's the one that actually builds the golden calf for the people who were complaining about it.
Oh, yeah. And then when he's confronted on it, he's like, well, the people threw their gold. And so it says that he fashioned the bull out of the gold. And then he tells the people threw the gold in and out came this bull.
Yeah.
Like it just came out of the fire. Like, dude, you fashioned it. Like you.
He built it.
Yeah. So he definitely.
He had his problems,
made
but
some
God
mistakes.
still actually chose him to be the high priest of Israel.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the cool thing of Aaron. He started off as a secondary character, this helper, and all he was a mouthpiece for Moses. And then God used him and turned him into the high priest of Israel. And then his family is the one lineage for high priests for like the next 100 years or something, right?
And so like I think it's so important to understand kind of the dynamics that take place in this, because the revolt starts because they are saying that they are holy, like they should be in that role. They like they're kind of like, this is they're seeing that as a favored position, and they want that favor. And Aaron never aspired to be that. He wasn't like, hey God, you need me to
Put me in leadership.
Put me in leadership. And so I think that it's important to just apply that to our lives, to just know your role. Know your role in the kingdom. Paul talks about the body having many parts. If we're all the eye, then who's going to speak and who's going to hear? And like, each part of the body has a specific role, and it's important for us to know and understand our role and to flourish in those roles. James says, let not many of you become teachers, my brethren, knowing that as such we will incur a stricter judgment. So if any of you lead somebody astray, right? It's better than to have, what is it? It's better to have that's
millstone.
That's Jesus talking, but better to have a millstone tied around your neck than to lead the little children astray. But I think
teaching
there's
children
also,
then.
but even it's not even just little children. It's in teaching and instructing.
Yeah.
And so I think there's kind of two lessons in that. For those of us who are in leading teaching roles, don't take that lightly. And also know with certainty that God has called us into that, because it's no small calling. And for those of us who are not called into those leadership roles, to know that there is still leadership opportunities before. So like Aaron wasn't leading the people; he was simply a voice. But he had the opportunity to show leadership capacity in that, and so we have opportunities to support and to support those who are in leadership, if that's not actually our role. But just be confident in what God has set before you and step into that, knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
That was the whole idea of the rebellion. Like you said, it's trying to step into a role you weren't chosen for.
Yeah.
And Aaron's role as the high priest was it was a huge responsibility. Like he not only had to do the sacrifices, but he had to enter in.
Right. Which is also like if you're in a situation where you are questioning the leadership that you're under, pray for your leaders. Like if we want to fully step into our roles, if my role is not leadership, but I have concerns about leadership, I need to pray for my leaders and pray that they will be led by God in the way that he would have them lead, and also pray for myself that I would submit to his leadership and trust his ability to lead those who are leading me.
So that leads us to our final question. How does the story of Aaron and Hur lead to fulfilling the rest of story of God throughout the Bible?
Well, it's not in the script this time. I didn't write anything, so we're going to have to
improvise.
improv.
That's right. But I think, and what we were just kind of talking about, which you do have in there as well, be willing to help, be willing to accept help. Those both of those things. So like for those who are called to leadership, we need help. Like Moses was called to leadership and he could not hold his arms up for as long as he needed to. Probably more than Abby's class in the 5 minutes that they were. Did anyone make it to the 5 minutes, by the way?
Oh, yeah, we all made it.
Oh, you did? Oh.
We were in grade 3. We were still like,
still strong.
Lots of
we're
energy.
still strong,
Yeah.
lots of energy.
So, yeah, we need to be willing to accept help when we're in positions of leadership. We're not a one-man show or a one-woman show. It's never meant to be about us. And so recognizing that it's all about God allows us to accept the help. And then also being willing to help our leaders and step up and serve. And not just our leaders, but the communities that we are a part of, that we are part of worshiping in. Church Sunday morning is never meant to be a consumer activity where you just show up and get your fix. We're all called to be a part of the community. And so find ways to jump in and to serve. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have all of these skills or whatever. Can you sweep a floor? Because that needs to be done every now and then. Can you prepare coffee if that's a part of the gathering? Can you press
open a door?
Yeah, press a button to open the door.
Can you say hi to people?
Can you say hi to
greet them?
people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jobs.
Yeah.
A lot of parts in the body.
That's right.
Cool. Fletcher, do you have anything to add?
I like Jay's answer a lot, I'll be honest.
There you go.
It's
That's
really good.
All right. Well, then, that's all we have for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening.
See you next week.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.